I'm Mitch Fields.
And I'm Alex Davidson.
We're going to be discussing the power generation systems of the Central America and the Caribbean islands.
Now, as we can see, these two regions are in quite close proximity. However, how they generate their power is vastly different.
I'm going to start talking about the Caribbean energy infrastructure. It was developed at a time when oil was abundant and low priced. As you can see from this chart here, most of the islands rely entirely on oil to supply their power generation, except for Trinidad and Tobago, which is mainly powered by natural gas, and Haiti, which is mainly powered by solid biofuels. Most countries are geographically small, which is why each island has their own independent energy infrastructure.
In regards to Central America, what is known as the CPAC, Central American Electrical Interconnected System. Now, they're focusing on developing their grid to expand, but the current growth rate right now is doubling from 4.5% each year, and that is expected to double by 2020. Now, with the real focus on the global environment, all the natural gases, global warming, they got a huge, they're leaning more towards trying to get renewable energies. And as we can see here, we've got our primary energy sources of cogeneration, renewables, thermal, and hydrogeneration. And for most of these countries here, we have mostly generating from thermal and hydroelectric generation, with starting to be increased amounts of renewables, as shown here, in Costa Rica and El Salvador, and slowly catching up in the other nations.
Back to the Caribbean, as you can see from what you just discussed, the energy that generates the power is very different. The Caribbean relies almost entirely on fossil fuels. For example, the U.S. Virgin Islands is 100% dependent on imported fuel. And because of this, most of the islands suffer from really high electricity rates. But things are going to change because there is the Caribbean Renewable Energy Development Program in place, which is putting increasing emphasis on developing more renewable energy sources that are less harmful on the environment, aim to reduce greenhouse gases and environmental pollution.
And we're just talking here, we have Costa Rica leading Central America with the largest hydro volume. That means they're getting a lot of their electrical power from dams such as this one here. The only one getting close to them, we're getting Panama. They're starting to generate more and more away from the oil. However, we see Honduras and Nicaragua, here and here, these two countries, they're starting to generate a lot of their energy based on thermal. Now, seeing as hydroelectric, there's a lot of potential here for growth. That is still the main power generation in the area. However, Costa Rica, at the cutting edge here in Central America, is starting to use renewables such as wind more often, is starting to be reflected on the graph.
For the future of the Caribbean power systems, as I said, many renewable energy solutions are being deployed right now. Things such as wind and solar farms. Since each island is geographically different, they all have different capabilities for what can provide power. For example, islands of volcanic origin are pursuing geothermal potential because it's a cleaner renewable energy source. And some islands that have a lot of access, islands that have the most sunlight are best for solar farms. Also, an interconnected power grid is economically feasible by using underwater submarine cables, which would increase reliability and lower electricity bills, as well as reducing pollution.
As for the future of Central America, they're really starting to put more of an emphasis on cutting back on pollution, and they want to further expand the electrical grid, ranging from the Panama-Colombian border to the Guatemala and Belize border with Mexico. So that way the whole region has one whole interconnected grid, which would really improve reliability for peak times if certain regions go without power and just the general stability of the grid, which would also contribute local economic development, so to build up more regions with various infrastructures related to electrical services. And by expanding the grid from Mexico down to Colombia, you could really interest in some foreign developers to further develop this potential.
Thank you for listening to our presentation on the power systems of Central America and the Caribbean islands.